Ah, the Maya, a civilization woven so intricately and colorfully into the tapestry of time. Picture this. It's about 800 AD. The rainforests of present-day southern Mexico and Central America are alive with the hum of life. Birds squawk, priests chatter about the latest in deity fashion, and somewhere, a family debates the merits of adding more chili to their cacao beverage. But something far more magnificent is unfolding. The Maya, with their intricate hieroglyphs and cities that could rival the mythical beauties of Atlantis, if you believe she existed, are bustling away. You can almost hear a Viracocha-infused version of a city council meeting, where someone is passionately advocating for an increase in llama parking spaces. Life, in its infinite march, carries on. Yet, amid the pyramids and pok-to-pok courts, whispers of change begin to ripple through time, like raindrops in the cenotes. You see, the Maya were nothing if not innovative. They gave us a calendar so precise that even the most punctual person would blush in admiration, and invented the zero in mathematics, effectively ensuring generations to come had something to stress over. But alas, there's a problem. You know, the kind that begins like a tiny itch, but soon becomes a full-blown "who forgot to turn off the oven?" kind of disaster. The breathtakingly beautiful cities of the Maya were not just beautiful, they were massive, sprawling metropolises, and such cities required some serious logistical finesse. Back then, growing food wasn't merely a civilized hustle, but a necessity lest one wished to indulge in the fringe diet of leaves and apologies. The lean, verdant fields that ringed the cities were cultivated tirelessly. The agricultural prowess of the Maya was nothing short of legendary. Picture a farmer named Uxmal, perhaps, standing at dawn with little more than grit and an impressive straw hat, cultivating his maize like he's concocting a miracle, which, generally speaking, he was. But even the mightiest jungles can falter. As drought began to grip the lands, fields turned hungry, and whispers of hunger began to coil like vines around daily life. Watching the skies, perhaps the Maya priests held conversations with gods above, seeking guidance or maybe just asking if they had spare rain in their pockets. It's said that a drought doesn't discriminate. It barges in and makes itself at home, not unlike a hungry raccoon at a picnic. Amid dwindling resources, one can imagine tensions within communities bubbling, not unlike chocolate in the pot. The same cities that once pulsed with the rhythm of overflowing cornucopias began to find their footsteps a little less certain. Yet, irony, or perhaps fate's playful hand, is that the cultural and artistic expressions never ceased. Even during times of scarcity, creativity flourished, ensnaring the essence of human resilience with the tenacity of a well-told bedtime tale. So as you gently linger on the precipice of consciousness, imagine Uxmal and his kinfolk pivoting gracefully from their agrarian symphony to a new dance that sought to orchestrate survival against the relentless march of change. It's a reminder that even as civilizations evolve, pause, and perhaps even stumble, they continue to sing within themselves stories of struggle and strength painted with the infinite colors of possibility. Now, just before you let these dreamy visions carry you off to slumberland, a touch of housekeeping. If these meandering journeys through time and mystery help you drift off, please subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. And before you fully fade into dreamland, I would love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. As you nestle deeper into your pillow, perhaps a lazy cat stretches out nearby, and the hum of our tale cradles you gently, a promise of whispered secrets to come on the beckoning horizon of history's vast, slumbering landscape. Ah, the ancient Maya, an impressive civilization that gives historians enough mystery to reconsider their choice of profession, and everybody else another reason to theorize from the comfort of their armchairs. But before we delve into the curious demise of this fascinating society, let us wander through a dreamscape scene from its pinnacle of glory. Picture this. It's a humid, tropical morning around 900 AD, and you find yourself casually strolling through a bustling Maya city. The aroma of fresh maize tortillas and cacao wafts through the air, mingling with hints of incense burning at nearby temples. Around you, artisans are meticulously shaping jade into delicate trinkets, trading them for pretty shells brought from distant coastal lands. The soundscape is a gentle cacophony of chatter and laughter, punctuated by the chirping of birds that seem to have appointed themselves the unofficial town criers. Life here, it seems, is as vibrant as the colors adorning the intricate murals that stretch across the city's expansive buildings. Imagine, if you will, encountering a bejeweled ruler reclined casually upon a throne. A real king smiles a lot. Well, at least when the crowds are watching. His trusty astronomers are likely busy calculating celestial alignments because, who wouldn't want to schedule their religious festivals according to the whims of planets and stars? It's an efficient system, really, translating the mysteries of the cosmos down to the practical matters of when exactly to hold the next ceremonial ball game. In the heart of the city, a pyramid rises majestically, the kind that's made for those inclined to devote an entire sunny afternoon to reaching its peak. The climb is definitely worth the effort, offering breathtaking, sweeping views of the jungles that stretch, as the Maya believed, out to the gods' playground. From this vantage point, civilization projects an air of permanence, an enduring empire that might never fall. But, as history would reveal, even the mightiest of cities can have weaknesses lurking beneath their formidable exteriors. As the sun begins its lazy descent, casting everything in a golden hue that would have made Maya artists proud, life in the city continues unabated. Children chase each other through winding paths, their laughter mingling with stories of elders reminiscing about when the jungle was only moderately rude in its constant attempts to reclaim the stone marvels of humanity. Farmers discuss their latest harvest, which, thanks to those clever terrace farming techniques, have so far provided bountiful sustenance to the ever-growing population. All seems well, doesn't it? But notice that the rosy lens of hindsight whispers a few inconvenient truths. Hidden behind the brilliance of their civilization, trouble was quietly brewing, like an unwanted rat in a gloriously festive maize granary. The jungle, you see, has a quirky way of avenging itself if you dare to impose too many corn farms within its shadowy depths. Soil exhaustion creeps in without sending a formal invitation, and when combined with climate changes nobly orchestrated by nature, you find yourself with a much less social-friendly feast than anticipated. And that's just the agricultural dilemma. Then there's the particularly charming notion of internecine warfare. See how our aspiring Maya crucises from nearby city-states whisper behind each other's backs, or rather, loudly bicker after taking the Build a Bigger Temple competition way too personally. Imagine leaf-bound messages of Tikal versus Calakmul II, return of the plot twist being hastily exchanged by opossum couriers under a moonlit rendezvous. Some terms and conditions were never destined for peaceful resolution when every city's economic survival was at stake. Alas, to speak of the Maya collapse solely in one strand of time is like attempting to save a chocolate by contemplating just one cacao bean. It's multi-layered, wrapped in centuries of context, both comprehensible and cryptic. Some urban centers endure, adapt, kind of like your half-chance pet cactus, stubbornly refusing to concede room, even when life throws successive droughts at them. As you listen, your eyelashes, becoming heavier than any historical speculation, drift gently into the next chapter, carried by the mists of time. Rest easy, knowing that the ancient trees, if they could, would nod in agreement with the notion that even giants eventually take a nap. Let the elements of mystery and history embrace you as we journey onward together. In the whispering mists of a tropical dawn, where the ancient trees seem to stretch their roots into the very depths of time itself, the Maya civilization thrived, like a great jungle cat sunbathing in its prime. But unlike the jungle cat, who only needed to worry about the occasional territorial dispute or a rather ruffled possum, the Maya had a few more existential challenges on their calendar. Calendars. Let's pause for a moment to appreciate the delightful complexity of the Maya calendar systems. While most people struggle to remember their second cousin's birthday, without the help of a phone reminder, the Maya managed a sophisticated system involving several interlocking cycles. How many cycles, you ask? Well, there's the Tzolk'in, the Hab, and the long count calendar, just to name a few. The long count alone could pinpoint an event to a particular day, billions of years in the past or future. This was not your average kitchen wall calendar with kittens, but rather a cosmic chronicle. And while we modern folk are scratching our heads, trying to recall what day it is after naps, the Maya were busy plotting the next solar eclipse. But let's not get sidetracked by the mesmerizing allure of perpetual calendrical gymnastics. Instead, let's ponder the everyday life of a Maya aristocrat. Imagine them, if you will, idly stroking their elaborately feathered headdresses, pondering political alliances, and perhaps worrying if their cocoa smoothed out just right into the divine nectar it was meant to be. As they sipped their chocolate, which was nothing like that sweet hot chocolate we cozy up to, it was more of a spicy, frothy potion. They might overhear whispers of brewing discontent among the peasants, and perhaps, just a bit concerned, they would debate the wisdom of leaving all that food production to the whims of a pesky climate. It's said that keeping your finger on the pulse of your society is crucial for leadership. Unfortunately, the pulse of the Maya society was slowly becoming one of arrhythmia. One can't help but smile at the thought of a totes serious Maya ruler declaring, "You know what's really crashing today? Not the stock market, my dear Chancellor, but rather the maize production." And indeed, the maize gods seemed to be particularly displeased, likely because the droughts were becoming as frequent as fruitcakes at Christmas. As the stories go, they might have tried everything, from intense ceremonial pleading to arranging their stones just so, hoping that this feng shui of the ancient world would please those weather gods. But alas, it seems even the most ardent rain dance could not coax the clouds into cooperation on some occasions. When the heavens were as dry as one's humor at a distant relative's annual family gathering, it proved to be rather problematic for agricultural societies, wouldn't you say? And yet, within the plots of history's grand tapestry, it's not just about hardships. It's about how civilizations adapt, change, or sometimes, wistfully, fade away. The Maya had constructed pyramids that poked into the sky as if shouting, "We're here, and isn't our architecture fabulous?" But the ground beneath those structures was urging, almost politely, "Perhaps you've overextended your welcome just a bit." With every tick of the heavenly clock and each solar return or absence thereof, the Maya leaders perhaps sat in council rooms, lavish ones with views that real estate agents today would sell their grandmothers for, trying to solve the divine puzzle they believed was handed down by their gods. As we drift further into our dreamlike exploration of ancient mysteries, imagine the spirited debates echoing through the corridors of these monumental structures. Ideas, perhaps as wild and creative as the colors of the tropical birds flitting by windows, or as grand as the construction projects that define their cities, were weighed and contemplated. So, dear traveler of time and space, as your eyes grow heavy, like a feather drifting slowly to the jungle floor, feel the pull of dreams, where the jungle softly cradles these forgotten stories, guiding us ever onward into more hidden histories and whispered secrets waiting beyond the ancient stone. In the shadowy depths of the rainforest, where the whispers of history rustle through the leaves, lies the resilient tale of the great Maya collapse. Picture the scene. Ancient Maya cities bustling with palace intrigue, marketplaces echoing with vibrant bartering, and stone pyramids brushing against the sky. A sophisticated civilization at the peak of its prowess. Then, mysteriously, over the course of the 9th century, something resembling ennui seemed to flutter across the vast web of settlements. Cities emptied like a theater after a lackluster matinee, leaving us, many centuries later, scratching our heads and our chins, wondering what snooze button the Maya might have hit. Now, the educated and somewhat drowsy listener might ask, what could possibly demotivate a civilization thriving so spectacularly in realms both material and celestial? Was it a cosmic joke played out across the constellations? Possibly, but the reasons are, as always, a smorgasbord of cause and effect, with a dash of, whoops, didn't see that coming. One theory spins the tale of resource depletion and environmental challenges, but let's not whisper to Sir deforestation just yet. Imagine kings and nobles with their grand visions, teeing at the thought of overspending their ecological bank accounts. Their lavish tastes for stucco meant vast deforestation. No wonder their neighbors scratched their heads and thought these folks might be more comfortable dwelling on the whims of gossamer clouds than the practicalities of timber limits. And where there's smoke, there's fire. Or rather, droughts. Those pesky climate patterns occasionally thrown down by a capricious Mother Nature. How inconsiderate of her to not inform the Maya skywatchers who, understandably, were focused more on planets that seemed to wink at them throughout the night. But when the rains skipped town, proclaimed by ring after ring in tree core samples, well, you could say it rained on their parade of agricultural ingenuity. Then there's the wild possibility that a little thing called internal warfare contributed to this more than an empire could handle. Scientific sleuths have unearthed evidence suggesting skirmishes multiplying like rabbits. Rabbits who, incidentally, were feeling more secure at this period than your average shoemaker. Maya politics was like a chessboard if the pieces occasionally switched allegiances mid-game. It's said that rulers in their feathered finery got a bit too entangled in dynastic feuds, managing city-states with all the finesse of a grandmother trying to set up a newfangled contraption like, say, an electric toothbrush. The stress, undoubtedly akin to misplaced dentures on a beach holiday. During these testing times, turning to the gods seemed the most logical course. The Maya reverently performed rituals, hoping to appease their numerous gods, diligent as a cat ensuring its 9 lives remain intact. But even divine intervention has its limits when earthly planners forgot to pencil in a little thing called drought preparation. Who knew divine favor didn't come with a lifetime guarantee? Social collapse adds another thread to this tapestry of mystery. As public concerns grew and public confidence waned, one can only imagine the chaos if their ancient newsletters were running columns with titles like Peasant Uprising or Just Another Monday. Frankly, that's enough to cause any civilization to take an early retirement. But amidst this symphony of strategic mistakes, environmental faux pas, and celestial oversight, what's a sleepy historian's theory, if not bemusement at how closely it all mirrors the whimsical unpredictability of human endeavor? The story of the Maya collapse is a nocturnal serenade to the complexities of great civilizations and their humble human hearts. As we snugly ponder these affairs in our imagination, a gentle reminder of the next portal rests before us. That gateway will take us into another scalloped corner of Maya life, where the vibrant tapestries of survival tactics and communal hopes weave through the nights of these ancient peoples. With a lullaby of thoughtful reflection, we prepare to journey on into the mysterious heart of this sleeping jungle narrative. As dawn broke over the ancient Maya city, Chulanab, a stone-clad metropolis nestled snugly in the jungles of what we now call Guatemala, the scene could have been lifted directly from an ancient travel brochure. Mist wafted lazily through yawning plazas, temporarily mingling with the smoke of breakfast fires, romantically referred to by today's historians as the breakfast smog of the classic period. Picture bustling streets where dignified traders ambled, sporting the spectacularly elaborate feathered headdresses that, not surprisingly, were the fashion must-haves of the day. Imagine, if you will, the delight of an ancient Maya tailor upon realizing he could charge more for these artful arrangements than he'd ever dreamt. If he branded his versions as limited edition, it wasn't all parades and plumage in Oid Chulanab, though. Among the stucco-covered temples and robust palaces, the elite stumbled upon their not-so-hidden secrets, better known as how to throw a raucous ball game with questionable after-party celebrations. Yes, the celebrity athletes of the Maya world were revered as gods on the court, adept at bouncing a heavy rubber ball without the modern-day crutch of air cushioning. They boasted skills that left mere mortal spectators feeling whimsically inadequate and visibly underpaid. While athletes were shooting rubber to glory in various corners of the city, scholars pondered the celestial realm. They were tirelessly scribbling in books, no less than works of divine inspiration, keeping potential talk show hosts dreaming of future astronomical forecasts. They tracked the movements of stars with painstaking accuracy, charting a cosmos that often must have seemed ready to topple off the page and land on whatever culinary delight was sizzling over the flames. Astronomers and mathematicians converged with equal fervor on the stargazing terraces, at times perhaps discussing the thrilling possibilities of calculating the next solar eclipse or plotting how to best engage spectators during dull lulls in festive gatherings. Who knew that crunching numbers and unwinding cosmic mysteries could feature in bedtime stories? But hush now. Wouldn't want to wake the mathematicians. But of all amenities, it was the reservoirs. Those brilliant innovators with their efficient water management systems, that won the day. Well, almost won. You see, the waters that wove through Chulanab had an unexpected agenda, whimsically deciding to perform spectacular disappearing acts. Historians later dubbed this unplanned hydrodynamic Houdini moment as a prolonged drought, likely muttered in hushed tones at the time while scribes puzzled over their rain rituals. Despite their considerable achievements, even the Maya could not consistently have anticipated such a climatic Ichi's surprise, though any suggestions that they simply misplaced the rainy season in their calendar might well have missed the mark. The disappearance of water gave farmers cause for concern and led to what experts of today affectionately describe as the "let's hope it's a temporary thing" movement. Alas, even the hearty maize and exotic cacao trees found themselves struggling for breath in the face of nature's temperamental whims. It was an era when dealing with drought composed an unwelcome chapter of their lives, though certainly not the kind dreamed up for berserk novelists. But still, they persisted. For if there's one thing history teaches us, it's that humans, ancient civilizations included, always find remarkable, and sometimes quite humorous, ways to survive misfortune, whether by rain chants, call upon rain deities, or slightly more straightforward strategic irrigation. As night blanketed the land with its warm embrace, an echo of laughter wafted from a far distant gathering, an assembly of those with lighter hearts seeking merriment amid uncertainty. The stars twinkled above them, like cosmic spectators poised elegantly to witness their struggles and triumphs. And with that, dear listener, snuggling further into the comforting folds of your duvet, let the gentle traces of these age-old tales guide you. Onward, you'll soon step softly into another chapter of this enigmatic civilization, where the threads of history are woven ever deeper, and where the lush whispers of the jungle yearn to share more secrets of the past. As the night drapes its velvet quilt over our tale, we find ourselves peering into the enigmatic cavern of Maya astronomy. The Maya, with all their imagination and celestial curiosity, pondered the cosmos with a gaze as steady as a sun-drenched sloth. Ah, the sloth, a creature that, much like the Maya, took life's pace a little slower, savoring each moment like a ripe cacao pod. Picture, if you will, ancient Maya, astronomers perched on top of their stone pyramids, taking notes on clay tablets by the light of 1,000 stars. They didn't quite have the modern conveniences of telescopes or pretty diagrams complaining about retrogrades. Instead, these stargazers had patience, the kind you might envy in any modern traffic jam. Their efforts bore fruit, in the form of massive almanacs and calendars so precise, they'd make your New Year's resolutions look positively lackadaisical. Here's where our sleepy storyteller's wink comes into play. Who else but the Maya could turn stargazing into a feat of such grandiosity, orchestrating their architecture to align with the heavens? It's like building the perfect sandcastle, only so accurate that it tells you when to harvest your crops or avoid getting married. Truly, cosmic farming advice at its finest. Of course, not every celestial decision was strictly romantic or agricultural. The alignment of Venus might suggest it was a terrible time to start a village kickball league, lest you anger the gods. You see, Venus, the celestial star of the morning, played a critical role in Maya affairs. Looming above with poetic cadence, this shining diva whispered warnings or blessings, depending on her mood and position. It's amusing to think that somewhere between 600 AD and your current pillow, celestial fortune-telling had already lit up the Mayas' nighttime musings with tremendous flair. And what about the legendary Maya calendar, the star of the ancient timekeeping show? While the world once feared it might foreshadow an apocalyptic finale, the Maya were frankly more concerned with when to throw the next ceremonial festival. Talk about planning your future, not just years, but centuries ahead, an impressive feat that would give even the most meticulous modern planners a headache. Now, here's the kicker, a playful jab of irony to ponder as you nestle into your fluffy sanctuary. All these celestial wonders, cosmic alignments, and precisely calculated rituals may have given the Maya a sense of order and power. Yet, they soon faced a more terrestrial array of dilemmas: climate shifts, resource exhaustion, and other such earthly mischiefs, all while Venus twinkled innocently, as if telling an insider joke. As the narrative pulls you gently toward the deep end of night's stream, consider this. Perhaps in observing the stars, the Maya found more than just guidance. They imbibed a profound connection to everything around them, a reminder to look up now and again, even as you journey through your daily, skyless path. It's a comforting thought, akin to knowing that just as the stars watched over them, in some sense, they continue to twinkle over us all, steadfast in their silent little chorus. And so, as you glide further into the velvet haze of sleep, imagine the night sky smiling back at you in ancient constellation whispers, promising that when the world feels vast and unknowable, there's always a twinkling guide tucked softly above the clouds. As the stars slowly twirl in your dreams, let whispers of a new day carry you into even deeper slumber, where tales of the hopes and wonders of a bygone era cradle you like a cozy, timeless lullaby. Let us now float into the boundless world of ancient Maya, where cities rose like towering testimonies to human ingenuity. Picture a place swathed in verdant jungles, where time was marked by the rustle of leaves and the rhythmic pulse of the universe, or as we call it today, Tuesday. The Maya civilization, much like that leftover lasagna in your fridge, had reached its expiry around the end of the classic period. But unlike your lasagna, the Maya didn't simply spend too long in the refrigerator. Indeed, their civilization faced a slew of increasingly insurmountable troubles, akin to trying to find a power outlet in a medieval castle. As we wander through the shrouded paths of yore, let's pay a visit to Tikal, one of the greatest cities of the Maya network. Tikal was akin to what we might dub the New York City of the Maya world, bustling with life and its own form of earthen skyscrapers. The city was known for its splendid stone palaces, towering pyramids, and an impressive acoustical delight known as chirped echoes. You see, when you stood atop the mighty temple of the jaguar and clapped your hands, the returning echo curiously sounded like the repetitive bark of the quetzal bird, perhaps an ancient form of entertainment, because nothing says fun like standing on a pyramid and clapping, right? However, one couldn't simply clap away crop failures, which began to stress the colorful tapestry of Maya society. The lush lands that provided abundant harvests began yielding diminishing returns, as if the soil signed up for an early retirement. This agricultural decline could largely be attributed to deforestation and soil exhaustion. The Maya were faced with an ecological crisis that might have elicited envy from later civilizations who coined entire environmental agencies. Except, of course, the Maya lacked Department of Jungle Affairs because it's hard to file paperwork when the alphabet you invented was still mostly in pictograms. Now, let's not forget the political shenanigans. The Maya political landscape, though not labeled as such, had all the melodrama of a high-stakes soap opera. Successions, alliances, betrayals, and perhaps a little too much theatrical public dress-up. City-states like Tikal and Calakmul engaged in a centuries-long rivalry that put your average board game skirmish to shame. Power shifted like sands in the desert, with alliances as reliable as a sandcastle on a windy day. But wait, there's more. Environmental hardships and political power struggles were not met with gentle dialogue over afternoon tea. Instead, they invited warfare. These conflicts weren't conducive to productivity unless you're counting spear production as a national economic indicator. Wars only added fuel to the fires burning in the political arenas, stretching resources thinner than a pancake at a breakfast buffet. With crop yields dwindling like last season's fashion trend, the Maya faced a food crisis. A communal feast took on a new meaning, not just a time for storytelling and celebration, but rather the pontoon bridge to survival, a notion closely resembling my own survival tactics at family gatherings. And as if resounding echoes of nature's alarm clock, droughts arrived to turn the inconvenience up to 11. Water sources dwindled, leaving the mighty reservoirs and canals thirstier than a lost soul at a desert party. It was an ancient game of thrones, but with actual thrones made from limestone, where the stakes made you wish you'd taken a rain check on those construction plans. As this cascading calamity unfurled, societal disruptions followed. Cities emptied, much like a thrilling bestsellers pages, after someone yells, "Fire," in a crowded library. This mass exodus spread the seeds for urban myths about vanishing cities, which later historians would term urban legends, though arguably the ghosts of Maya past might call it a real downer. And there we leave our wandering thoughts, like a gentle breeze brushing through the ancient stone. Darkness still holds its secrets tightly, but it's time for us to relax our minds and prepare for a quiet passage into the next chapter of this tale. As you let the warmth of history cradle you into dreams, remember, there's always more to discover just around the moonlit curve as the purple-tinted shadows stretch languidly across the crumbling stones of Tikal. One couldn't help but muse over the peculiar rituals that once filled this ancient Maya city with life. Imagine, if you will, a time when pyramids were all the rage, the fashion of grandeur, and deities roamed the earth with an entourage of priests who may or may not have all needed a haircut. The Maya, clever as they were, had a calendar, systems so intricate that it required an entire class of noble mathematicians to decipher. No simple pocket almanacs would suffice here. Oh no. The Maya tracked the cosmos with the same fervor that today's world tracks celebrity breakups. You see, to the Maya, the movements of Venus were as riveting as a reality TV show's season finale. Yet, as the sun dipped below the lush canopy, shrouding the temple precincts in mystery, you might wonder just how such a vibrant civilization began to wane. Was it hubris, overpopulation, or was it just their version of an existential crisis when aspirational pyramids brought more stress than satisfaction, much like today's quest for the perfect latte? Around the 8th century, it seems the Maya were facing some pretty rough feedback from the Yucatan VIP lounge. Populations were booming like a party that never ended, but eventually they found themselves in dire need of a decent infrastructure plan. The farmers complained that the fields were looking more parched than a cactus in a sauna. The animals mysteriously fled the compound, and even the mystical ball games weren't quite drawing the crowds they used to. It turns out, making a comeback after losing a few games to the neighboring city was as unlikely as getting a cat to fetch. But here's where the plot thickens like your favorite sleepy herbal tea. Environmental pressures were like that guest who stays just a bit too long. Deforestation and soil exhaustion turned the fertile ground into stubborn land that bore less fruit than an accountant's briefcase. Nature's balance sheet was not in the green, so to speak. Meanwhile, social tensions simmered like a pot left on a stove, unattended. The ruling elite, with their opulent lifestyles rivaling any Instagram influencer, may have become a touch disconnected. Why? If they were alive today, they'd probably be caught by paparazzi donning the latest ceremonial headdress, but forgetting to address the flute player's union strike, or the rising cost of obsidian jewelry. Right on cue, a little domestic unrest decided to play its part. Some communities started to wonder, loudly as you do when pondering your leader's ability to connect the dots between divine mandates and basic plumbing, if there might be better ways to manage their resources, like voting for new management, or perhaps scheduling a merger with less ambitious deities. Then, of course, there was climate change. The cyclical droughts became a series of unfortunate events, each trying to outsmart the last by outdrying the villages. The irony, perhaps unintended, was that the climate was playing the ultimate peekaboo. Now you see the rain, now you don't, and left everyone invested in rain sticks and more ceremonial dances than were strictly necessary. As if it wasn't already a conundrum worthy of a detective novel, external pressures from the surrounding territories started knocking, demanding borrowed sugar or suggesting architectural feng shui to match. Neighboring city-states played their part, nudging here and destabilizing there, a chess game without a clear rulebook, but plenty of determined champions. And so, while the yak's mutal bloom may have dimmed in the sunlight, its roots sprawled into everything from mathematics to astronomy, a legacy the world would grapple with far longer than the royals ever imagined while lounging in the stony grandeur of their palaces. As our tale meanders on, picture the moon now hanging low and wise above this tableau of ancient drama. It offers its cool glow to the restless remnants of a civilization whose riddles continue to captivate those with restless minds and wandering dreams. Perhaps somewhere amid these ancient passageways, we shall uncover further secrets of what happened next to these once mighty pyramidal kingdoms, as a warm and welcoming breeze whispers through the verdant canopy of a lush, once mighty Maya jungle. We find ourselves amidst a paradoxical scene of a bustling tranquility. Here, in the very heart of the Yucatan Peninsula, we tiptoe through the ancient remains of a society mysteriously paused, as if frozen in time like a historical flash mob that just lost track of its cue. Ah, the Maya, a dazzling civilization that conjured up wonders like the enigmatic city of Tikal with more pyramids than you can shake a leaf at. You see, the Maya had a penchant for building stone structures so grand that even the local toucans couldn't resist setting up prime real estate. It was a symphony of stone, leaf, and tweet, with the tropical avian audience always in tune, as if conducting their own jungle orchestras. In this world, it wasn't just the architecture reaching skyward with aspirations of divine communication. Oh no, it was the written word too. Those intricate hieroglyphs, etched carefully on stelae by artisans intermingling artistry with a perhaps not so unsubtle flex of intellectual prowess. Indeed, Maya scribes were the ancient equivalent of quill-wielding street artists, leaving behind Instagram posts in stone for future archaeologists to double-tap. Metaphorically, of course. But what of the daily life beyond the towering pyramids and celestial scribblings? Picture this: a day in the life of a typical Maya city dweller, waking up not to the irritating buzz of an alarm, but to the dulcet tones of squabbling toucans as they argued over branch space with the kind of fervor only birds in paradise can muster. Breakfast likely consisted of maize cooked in myriad forms, perhaps chased down with a bit of chocolate, a beverage then reserved for the elite, and as likely caffeinated as your afternoon mocha. As the sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow over the meticulously cultivated fields, the air filled with the rhythm of life. Farmers tending to their crops, artisans chiseling away at their masterworks, and thinkers contemplating the mysteries of the cosmos under the expansive sky. Yes, the Maya had a rather enviable gig going, interwoven cycles of agriculture, art, astronomy, and naturally, the occasional ball game with stakes rather more severe than a mere trophy. Ah yes, Pocketalk, the Mesoamerican pastime. Think of it as a sort of ancient precursor to soccer, only rather more complicated and with an added element of danger, given that post-match celebrations didn't always end well for the losing team. Fun, perhaps, as long as one was on the winning side of history. Yet, there was a storm brewing on the horizon, more silent than the softest jungle rain. It was as if the universe had decided, with a knowing nod, that the Maya had reached a crescendo so harmonious that a sudden pause, a dramatic intermission, was due. And so, decline seeped in, from revered cities signaling the onset of an invisible chaos, where rulers were left scratching their heads, perhaps muttering something like, "Was it something we said?" But here we rest in a timeless canopy above lost cities, pondering the fragile balance between nature and civilization. As gentle moonbeams dance delicately upon ancient stonework, the whispers of the jungle carry forward to Chapter 10, where the tale weaves deeper into enigmatic corridors, each step drawing us closer to the pulse of a once pulsating Maya heart. Feel yourself float gently, aloft on the breeze of curiosity, feeling the warmth of a bygone sun. As you breathe deeply into this blend of history and dreams, let this tale of the Maya cradle you into a tranquil sleep, where wisdom tickles your senses as playfully as a jungle leaf, fluttering softly back to rest. Nestled quietly beneath the sprawling canopy of clouds, the enigmatic Maya civilization once crafted a world teeming with architectural marvels, celestial observatories, and a society so methodically complex that even an intricate crossword puzzle would have fled in terror. As we gently roll over into our 10th chapter of this history-infused lullaby, let's waltz back through the lush forests of the Yucatan Peninsula, where our story serenely unfolds amidst the whispers of ancient jungles. Imagine, if you will, elegant stone cities rising majestically as the sun playfully dances across the tenacious horizon. The Maya, master builders with a penchant for pyramid perfection, seem to possess a celestial blueprint. One could almost imagine groups of eager astronomers calculating where best to place the sun's morning coffee on their observatory's ledge. But alas, the tale of the Maya isn't just about grand monuments and mathematical brilliance. Enter the bustling markets, crammed with everything from cacao beans, the currency that quaked the hearts more reliably than any modern Bitcoin, to the colorful textiles that twirled around every person like the ultimate ancient fashion statement. One might say, the Maya were the trendsetters before it was even cool. The chatter of traders bartering over jade and obsidian was soon accompanied by a cacophony from ritualistic ball games, where players exhibited astonishing athletic prowess in a game that makes modern-day sports look like a soothing game of checkers. The stakes were unthinkably high. As the troubled-looking athletes hurled a rubber ball across the inclined court, it's whispered that the winning team's captain had the honor, and yes, emphasis on honor, of being offered up to the gods. Talk about aggressive career advancement. Yet, in the midst of this vibrant tapestry, lay a hidden thread woven by an unforeseen hand. Around the late 8th and 9th centuries, the great Maya cities began quietly closing their operations, one after another, like a resident insomniac who's finally decided that a good nap is overdue. So what happened? Was it the mysterious toll booth trolls? Perhaps overzealous cosmic whims? Or did the gods simply #unfollow? Researchers point to a diverse portfolio of reasons. Some economic anxiety, rampant droughts, internecine, that's warfare, and possible overpopulation not accounted for in early forecasts. The civilization that ingeniously engineered flourishing water systems suddenly faced curveballs thrown by Mother Nature herself. It seems, perhaps, the rains had taken an unexpected sabbatical to sip margaritas on some distant cloud vacation. More enigmatic than the sudden abandonment were the once illustrious city centers, now whispered about only by the ancient trees. One might imagine nature herself savoring the quiet, a welcome break from the once lively chatter, as tender green vines ventured forth to reclaim their long-lost territory, gently hugging the stone arches and caressing the silent pyramids. But not all hope evaporated into the afternoon mist. Pockets of resilience sprout amidst this tale's folds. Many smaller Maya centers carried on with stubborn resolve, clutching to traditions, like an old cat guarding its sunspot on an otherwise crowded windowsill. The civilization did not vanish into the night as shadows do. Rather, it adapted, shifted, and transformed into the tapestry's new design. As the stars beckon ever nearer, one finds comfort in the cyclic folds of history. New beginnings peep through old endings, like a field mouse cheerfully dodging a farmer's plow. So rest easy, dear listener, letting the softly comedic whispers of time's tapestry wind around you. Drift gently now, as the mysteries of the Maya will linger like the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine, carrying us forward into the next drifting scene of this dreamy historical tapestry. As the jungles of the Yucatan yawned into the twilight of an ancient epoch, a peculiar air of speculation hung over the sun-dappled canopy, as if nature itself was participating in an intellectual game of chess. Let us draw closer, not to disturb, but to witness, like dreamy travelers eavesdropping on secrets whispered by time and swaying fronds. For something truly fascinating was afoot in the realm of the Maya. Now, we've all heard stories of this so-called collapse with the requisite doom and gloom befitting a historical drama, but pause for a moment and consider, what if the Great Maya Collapse wasn't as catastrophic as a 5-day sporting event exclusively attended by pessimists? To tackle such a riddle, our scene shifts to a city, the vibrant, bustling behemoth we know as Tikal, a hub of geometry, astronomy, and probably hieroglyphic doodling competitions. Sounds like a jolly place to be, doesn't it? But here's where it gets intriguing. Tikal was one locus of the paradoxical puzzle that left historians scratching their heads more often than a summer tourist swats mosquitoes at Chichen Itza. Imagine a place where the walls try to speak more often than your chattiest aunt at a family reunion. The glyphs today, albeit silent, hint at political squabbles that could rival the most complex television dramas. Yes, my dear scholars of snooze, as we float weightlessly through this jungle of past plunders, political leaders in the classic Maya period had more spats over territory than siblings over a favorite toy. Yet, instead of dividing the kingdom like a disenchanted cake at the end of a weary party, the Maya often engaged in dynastic gymnastics, a charming dance of alliances and rivalries. Think of it like high stakes, ancient matchmaking, where every merger or clash brought to life more fascinating frescoes on temple walls. Adding to the mix was a certain scarcity of rain, a climate hiccup of sorts. These weren't mere passing showers skipping their appointments. No, this was the time when the heavens decided to give rain checks quite literally. When faced with diminishing water levels, the Maya seemed less interested in wearing rain boots and more in constructing impressive reservoirs. Spirals of ingenuity, dappling engineering marvels across the landscape, all for the precious, dazzling drops that refused to fall. Clever remedies indeed, but increased. Drought meant more pondering among the priest kings. Who's to say what grand strategy meetings took place under the observant stars? Debates could very well have woven into nocturnal lullabies, as ancient minds huddled, hopeful and dreaming of liquid blessings. Amidst this precarious balancing act, another foe loomed, the spectre of a waning environment. The forests encroached upon, challenging one's sense of permanence. Picture ambitious rulers, feverishly embroiled in constructing palatial city complexes, and much like ambitious children in sandboxes, needing more and more building blocks, the limestone, the wood, the quintessential storytelling stones. Chuckles could fit here somewhere, faint echoes of hard-field toil and enigmatic glyphic whisperings, and there lay a potential reason for our beloved collapse, or rather transition, if we soften edges from tragedy to bedtime pondering. The superlative civilization became a victim, perhaps of its own success. Empires, in case you haven't noticed, have a penchant for growing like weeds on a sunny day. Yet, amidst the crestfallen archaeologists and historical melodrama, real life pulsed on. Small cities thrived. Knowledge wove its threads through time like a river winding ever forward. The numerous endings suggested were just stages, much like a season written into the very fabric of nature's green tapestry. As stars serenade our sleepy senses under the whispering canopy, let us dwell not on what is lost, but turn to what lurks beyond, a tantalizing ricochet of historical dominoes lined up, just waiting for a softer step forward into the next phase of this curious tale. And so, let the echoes of Tikal's magnificent spires and whispered whims tuck us gently back into dreamland, bidding us fresh curiosity for the dawn as the tale continues. As the flickering light of the moon bathed the ancient Maya cities in a silvery glow, we embark upon a journey deep into the trade routes of the lowland regions. Let's imagine ourselves riding on the backs of mythically large guinea pigs that shuffle politely through the jungle underbrush. Yes, the Maya had their own road rage, which involved snappy exchanges over whose camels, make that llamas, were blocking the path. But all jokes aside, the Maya were experts in commerce, transporting goods that ranged from jade and obsidian to feathers and cacao beans. Ah, chocolate, fuel for the heart and soul, precisely the kind of luxurious item you'd want to trade your annoying brother for, even back in 800 AD. In this chapter of history that unfolds with the grace of falling cacao beans, we unravel the curious complexities of the classic Maya trade networks, which at one point would have had you scratching your head and dreaming of giant guinea pigs instead of sleep. You see, the bustling urban landscapes of the Maya lowlands relied heavily on their intricate trade system, a symphony of economics that kept kings in jade jewelry and kept the common folk dreaming of feathered headdresses they might never wear. To the keen observer, yes, that's you, intrepid dreamer. The way these commodities were exchanged might have seemed like a fabled marketplace out of time. Great Tikal was not only a center of architectural wonders and philosophical pursuits, but also a juncture for luxurious exchanges. Just imagine the negotiations happening over stalls of cotton textiles, a pint-sized game of haggling unfolding over the finest weave you could lay under your slumbering head. Yet the ultimate currency lay in those shining bits of green rock. Jade was the emerald dream of the Maya world, held in such esteem that people would possibly hesitate to throw it into board game bets, while these luminous stones were scattered across the trade routes like stardust, obsidian, a volcanic glass, glinted menacingly, ready to be shaped into the weapons and tools that made daily life both safer and more dangerous, depending on what side of an argument you found yourself on. Now you might wonder, in those teeming plazas where parrots squawked above, what vital herbal concoctions were making the rounds alongside artisanal pottery. Indeed, the ever-enigmatic pharmacologists of the Maya knew more than a thing or two about concoctions that could ease your aches, including that nagging back pain from sleeping on stone beds. These entrepreneurs were known to prepare remedies derived from exotic flora, peddled with a fervor that rivals your modern tea sale. Yet, dear listener, even as trade thrived and communities flourished, ominous clouds began to gather on the distant horizon. One erosion had yet to realize. A delicate equilibrium, threatened by shifting political alliances and changes in climate, began its slow dance toward a fade-out, an opera of ups and downs that distantly echoes today's stock market, perhaps. Who knew that cycles of drought could play such a dramatic hand in the vast saga of Maya existence? As our expedition glides to a pause, I invite you to drift a little deeper into these whispering winds of time. What stories did those ancient traders take back to their children as they nestled into their dreams at sunset? And what truths and riddles lie ahead on our softly trodden path? With those musings tickling your mind, let your thoughts glide effortlessly into the folds of slumber, where the answers may dew as you rest. As the jungle canopy settles into an inkier shade, let's prepare to venture deeper into the heart of ancient mysteries yet untold. As the jungle night wraps its gentle arms around the ancient stones, our sleepy journey drifts toward the vibrant heart of the Maya civilization, centered around the bustling cities that once adorned the Yucatan Peninsula like a string of precious jade beads. Picture this: bustling metropolises with towering pyramids that seem to stretch their stone fingers to tickle the underbelly of the heavens, and plazas filled with people, as colorful as the jungle's own plumage. You could almost hear the rustle of feathered quetzal capes and the clinking of obsidian tools, symphonies of a world now blanketed by the whispers of the past. Nestled within this tropical orchestra, the Maya lived their days much like a spirited opera, each act more intriguing than the last. Hold tight to your imagination as we pull back the jade curtain to reveal a typical day in one of their great city-states. In the soft, golden glow of an early Maya morning, the high priest prepares for his day's celestial charting. Perhaps looking at his divine iPad of the stars, or as the rest of us might call it, a rather large and intimidating codex. He's crafting a calendar so precise that Swiss watchmakers and modern astronomers alike would nod in impressed agreement. Decked out in an outfit that could easily double as the world's first Wi-Fi signal tower, not exactly conducive to a quick trip to the grocery market, he's the rock star of the astronomical world. Despite the heat, he doesn't break a sweat, thanks to the power of divine motivation and possibly an acute shortage of tailoring options. Meanwhile, the local market buzzes like a hive of bees on a sugar high. Vibrant stalls bursting with obsidian blades, so sharp they could slice egos with a mere glance, and textiles that would make even the most stoic modern Instagrammer ooh at their pattern potential. The air is filled with the earthy scent of freshly ground cacao, chocolate. History's greatest currency, and still, in many ways, the world's only universal language of happiness. Merchants and barterers negotiate animatedly, their hands painting the air with numbers, their voices a melody of lively transactions echoing through rows of vividly colored stalls. Now, let's take a dreamy walk over to where the artists work. Each artist's hand seems to dance like they're playing the earliest iTunes track of the soul, chiseling stone so history never forgets. Their kings, their queens, and a particularly remarkable festival where a great athlete pronounced, "Oh, you're keeping score. I thought we were gauging how long I can keep running in circles just for fun." Little did he know, he was one erroneous step away from inventing golf. As the sun lasers across the sky, the pyramid builders are gearing up for a hard day on the pyramid making field, an enticing mix of heat, height, and heavy materials enough to challenge even the heartiest of fitness buffs. Underneath noonday sun, a supervisor meticulously checks blueprints drawn in the sand, presumably squinting at their triangular elegance, before emphatically pointing out, "No, it needs to be big, jur." This mysterious, ancient directive that bigger equates to proximity to the gods sounds suspiciously similar to the modern-day wisdom of supersized. Anything is remarkable. Amidst this flurry of activity, where even time seems to lose itself in the charm of its surroundings, hieroglyphists laboriously pen epic tales and grocery lists in stone. Each deft stroke transforms limestone into an email that won't get mysteriously lost in the spam folder of history. As twilight casts its serene, shimmering veil, festivity ignites the night. Dances, perhaps, accompanied by the dulcet tones of music woven from bones and gourds. The world's first recycling initiative, startlingly avant-garde for 800 AD, encourage even the sternest scribe to tap their foot in ancient syncopation. So with reverence to the Maya and the brilliant tapestry they spun with civilization's threads, we prepare to wander onward through these chapters the way the night wanders across a starry sky. As sleep gently calls us further into the forest of dreams, we pause, knowing that this city of wonders was not only a stage of life, but also a whisper of all that the past could have been, like a note lingering in the air just after the symphony falls silent, only to harmonize with the night once more. Ah, the tale of the great Maya collapse. Picture yourself lying in a hammock strung between two mighty saber trees, their branches swaying overhead like the fingers of a benevolent giant tickling the clouds. Dreamy, isn't it? Tonight, we're drifting back into the jungles of ancient Mesoamerica, where the mysteries were as thick as the vines and nearly as entwined. Now, the Maya were a magnificent civilization, as densely packed with deities as they were with calories in their beloved maze. They were mathematicians, astronomers, architects. They practically invented calendar anxiety with their intricately carved schedules that would make even the most organized minimalist weep from planning fatigue. But as the curiously patient river of time flowed on, something quite peculiar unraveled in the heart of this civilization that leaves us pondering with heavy eyelids even today. Our focus rests on the fabled declining days of the classic Maya, those golden-bricked, centuries before their society hit a snag more confounding than a triple-knotted hammock. Around the 8th and 9th centuries, as the rest of the world went about their mundane business of, all things dark and medieval, the Maya began an unscheduled retreat from their thriving cities in the lowlands, leaving behind impressive architecture that rivals the most determined sandcastle builders among us. Why did they leave? You might murmur softly as you snuggle deeper into your blanket burrito. Ah, my friend, therein lies the twist of the archaeological plot, thicker than jungle humidity. There were enticingly juicy rumors of climate change, those infamous droughts making an appearance more regular than a wayward relative at dinner time, taking a toll not only on the water supply, but also on morale. And those hearty maize fields, they were turning more rebellious than a teenage deity in mythology class. But hold your yawns just yet, for there was also the idea of social unrest. You see, the Maya rulers were as fond of putting on a show as you or I might be, of binge-watching the latest trending historical drama. These leaders were divine performers in a celestial theater, and their subjects, the adoring audience, expected rain and harvest, prosperity and peace, not curtain calls without an encore. As these mighty cities grew, so did the complexities of governance and trade. Imagine a colossal fanfare of political intrigue rivaling any modern-day committee meeting that runs suspiciously over schedule. Competing city-states seemed locked in an elaborate game of capture the city, named after a jungle creature, occasionally escalating to squabbles that would make a parliamentarian wince with recognition. Trade routes occasionally hiccuped amidst these disputes, like a grand cosmic joke where the punchline was all too real, the drying whispers of waning resources. With fewer chocolate-stuffed potlucks and visits from long-distance cousins bringing jade and obsidian, tensions, it seems, simmered not unlike a hot cup of cacao left too long by the fire. Yet perhaps the most whimsical theory, and mind you, nothing creates an aura of slumber quite like whimsical theories, is the eerie possibility of artistic burnout. Yes, imagine the artisans too weary to carve yet another oversized monument to kindred spirits poking at the night sky for inspiration, only to find a blank canvas staring back. Here, laced within this conundrum, the mystery endures. With the whispering rustle of ancient leaves and the intermittent melody of the jungle's nocturnal creatures, one might dreamily wonder if the collapse was instead an elegant pivot, a deliberate setting down of burdens, or even a calculated retreat into new chapters unwritten, as the embers of civilization cooled with the sunset. And as we tinker with these gentle musings in the alcove of our collective imagination, let this echo of a bygone era lull us deeper into slumber's embrace. For soon, under the watchful eyes of these ceiba trees, we'll explore yet another tucked away secret in this vast garden of history, where the past whispers serenely into the twilight of dreams. Deep within the lush tapestry of Yucatan jungles, where the air glistened with golden sunlight and the howler monkeys practiced their daily operatic arias, the great Maya cities once thrived with a vibrancy only rivaled by Mother Nature herself. In this particular chapter of our cozy escapade, we meander through the misty morning streets of Tikal before anyone had discovered coffee, or alarm clocks, for that matter. In the days of yore, Tikal wasn't just a sprawling metropolis chiseled through the underbrush. It was a buzz of chit-chat and the unsettling sound of conch shells being blown in the distance. Picture it, if you will, pyramids piercing the dawn sky, and, Somewhere, a scribe laboriously etching yet another shopping list onto a stone tablet. Maize, beans, jaguar pelts. Oh, can't forget, the festive headgear. Ah, but behind this serene busyness, our Maya friends were embroiled in challenges that could fluff the pillows of a weary civilization. So as we rest our heads on soft woven blankets, allow me to take you on a journey into the curious conundrum of agriculture and its unwelcome partner, deforestation. You see, the Maya were brilliant farmers. Their secret, a technique called milpa, which sounds like a tropical dance but is actually a sophisticated form of crop rotation that made the soil sing with fertility. But alas, like every garden at home, sometimes even the best-kept plots can end up looking like a grumpy hedgehog's back on a bad day. The land, overfarmed and somewhat sulky, began to respond to relentless human ambition with diminishing yields. It was the ancient version of a garden plot saying, "I would like to speak to the manager," not ones to let their cornfields go to seed. Literally and figuratively, the Maya spent their idyllic afternoons chopping down more trees, clearing more land, a forest equivalent of that viral tidying trend, but without the thank you speeches to every individual tree. As logs cracked and crashed gently to the ground, their roots loosened. The rain began to wash away the soil faster than a river running with a gossip scoop. And oh, did the rain have stories to tell. Gently snoring under a starry continuum, things might have gone unnoticed if not for the unexpected whispers of scarcity that began to echo through the city. Those same whispers found their way into the buttresses of mighty stone temples, a complaint or two here, a neighborhood meeting over there. Once brightly colored murals began to fade, not just from age, but from the weight of uncertainty. Yet, this episode isn't just about the brevity of topsoil or the outcry of once mighty trees. As dusk settled, another intrigue brewed, up in the stars. Renowned for their celestial prowess, the Maya knew how to read the night sky better than an astronomer on a caffeine high. However, aligning the earthly with the heavenly sometimes required more than a stellar symphony. Oh, the ceremonials and rituals that ensued. Heartbeats synchronized with cosmos, incense spirals twirled like a prima ballerina, and hopes were lobbed heavenward with the best royal flair one could muster. Did the skies respond? In a way, comets with impeccable timing streaked across the twinkling dome, possibly hinting at divine messages, or just cosmic graffiti artists at work. Either way, celestial alignments were slightly askew, and folks couldn't help but wonder if the universe had a cosmic bone to pick. Now, as our eyelids droop like those mighty obsidian stones framing Tikal's plazas, the air punctuated by distant owls and jungle chirps holding on to the night, a slow, serene drift dawns upon us in anticipation of discovering how the ancient people navigated through the looming forest of troubles and stars gone awry. Rest easy, under ancient skies, all remains gently adrift. Imagine a bustling Maya city, glittering under a vibrant canopy of Central American flora. Its name is Copan. And no, it isn't just the latest pop-up coffee shop in Brooklyn. In the late Classic period, it was a shimmering jewel of civilization, resounding with trade, toothy crocodiles, and perhaps the odd neighborly dispute over whose jade earrings were more fashionable. Let us take a stroll through its ball courts, where intense games akin to a blend between soccer and a high-stakes episode of charades unfolded. The players would spend hours trying not to let the rubber ball touch their hands or feet, and spectators would cheer, presumably betting on who'd get beamed in the skull next. In this fascinating game, losing could mean more than just a bruised ego. Historical whispers suggest the stakes might have included sacrificial rites, ensuring sportsmanship had a rather final conclusion. Picture that at your local Little League. Now, if we quietly drift away from the clamor, we'll come across a gathering of scholars huddled around an intricately carved stela, a stone monument. Here, ancient intellectuals etched hieroglyphs, immortalizing noble deeds, complex astronomical calculations, and perhaps early drafts of what would become the bedtime story. The Maya were mathematical marvels, calculating the movement of divine celestial bodies with an accuracy that would make a modern-day astrophysicist grunt in admiration before promptly going back to sleep. Indeed, their calendar foresaw astronomical events with such precision that even an iOS update wouldn't have tripped them up. Yet, as adept as they were in making sense of the stars, the cosmic conundrum of bill payments still eluded them. These bustling metropolises, however, had their challenges. The Maya had a penchant for ambitious building projects, and unlike IKEA furniture, these were considerably heavier to move. But lift they did, stacking pyramid over pyramid, possibly in a well-intentioned, albeit misguided exercise of one-upmanship. Each successive ruler aspired to leave a permanent mark, a sentiment not unlike folks who permanently etch meaningful but dubious quotes upon their skin. Here in Copan, the kings and queens upheld order, their headdresses seemingly defying the laws of gravity and taste. However, the trappings of power, much like those elaborate feathered crowns, were weighty and over time crumbled beneath their own grandeur. Soil, once bountiful, began to gasp and whisper secrets of overuse, whispering a growing fatigue to ears intent on hearing grander tales. Indeed, those tales took form in societal shifts, where the cities began to echo less with dynastic tales and more with ghostly echoes of what had been. It wasn't glorious warfare or decisive invasions that dimmed these intricacies of life, but an intricate waltz of ecological overreach, political recalibration and change, much like the transition to Chez daylight, saving time. As night gradually yet gently enshrouded Copan, people packed their worldly wisdom and began leaving the cities they had built with divinely inspired vision. Perhaps they went in hope of reaching a simpler life, undisturbed by the ceremonial clamor that had dominated for generations, taking a cue from the wise armadillo who simply burrows and watches the world move on. With a parting sigh, the city surrendered itself to silence and creeping vines. The jungle, ever the cheeky cover band of nature, played its rendition of time, reclaiming stones with lush enthusiasm. It would stage a verdant cover-up, and soon, Copan and its ilk became part of hallucinogenic legends whispered by future generations. Herein, let us softly nudge the covers around this chapter, pondering a civilization whose echoes still resound in our playful dreams and daily dormancy. As we release this narrative strand, our tale floats gracefully towards the horizon, hinting at more secrets, or waiting patiently to be uncovered in the tapestry of this wondrous world. As the sun lazily dipped its toes behind the towering temples of the ancient Maya city-states, one could only imagine the hum of life that once buzzed through these stone forest mazes. Picture, if you will, dear listener, the fleeting whispers of ancient priests discussing the celestial geometry of the stars while the aroma of freshly ground cacao wafted through the plaza. But in this chapter of our tale, mysteries prevail over the allure of cocoa beans and astronomy. Amidst the grandeur of these lost civilizations, the downfall of the Maya remains a puzzle tucked snugly in the rumpled sheets of history. While scholars dreamily debate the causes, be they environmental changes, warfare, or political intrigue, there's a slice of the story that is often overlooked: the very human element. Imagine, if you dare, the climate changes not as austere catastrophes, but as the world's longest-running weather feud, emphasized by the rival gods of sun and rain, complaining, "You planned a drought? Well, I'll just flood everything. How do you like that?" The Maya elite might have had weather issues on their royal agendas, but let's not forget that ruling over such a complex society involved more than just hosting the grandest dance-offs in Mesoamerica. With every stone carving, each ruler seemed to proclaim, "Look at my glyphs, aren't they neat?" All the while competing to host the most jaw-dropping ball game since, well, ever. But beneath this veneer of ceremonial volleyball, diplomatic marriages, and city-states playing the ancient game of "my pyramid is bigger than your pyramid," there existed a much more mundane reality. Imagine the day-to-day lives of Maya villagers, likely not worrying whether the neighbor's fresco was more hip than theirs, but more so, if they could finally figure out a way to keep jaguars out of their cornfields. These villagers lived at the whims of eminent solar flares and rain clouds which, to be fair, made modern meteorologists seem as grounded as postmodern art. Yet the intricacies of Maya society were even more tangled than our festive spider plant. On one hand, delightfully complex. On the other, unpredictably sprawling. Here we discover the role of the Maya scribe, a position of such respect that one wonders if they occasionally found their way into awe-inspiring parties simply by impressing with their inking skills. Possibly the ancient equivalent of an unsolicited thesis presentation at a dinner party. Their intricately woven hieroglyphs echo across the centuries, yet there are gaps which can lead us to believe even the scribes faced the perilous clutches of writer's block, wringing their hands over ragged parchment in the struggle to encapsulate the day's embalming techniques or the divine merits of squash. And let's not forget those iconic stelae, those grandiose stone billboards protruding from the jungle like timeless totem, and poles crowing accomplishments of long-gone leaders. But what if these stone tablets were actually ancient Maya memes, meant to entertain as much as educate? Consider this. Did rival cities send spies just to swipe fresh carving ideas, or try to slap on the latest quip before proclaiming, "This will break the stele net for sure"? Now, let's weave through the fabric of time, stitching together the highly speculated droughts, the internal frictions overheard among noble cliques, and what was possibly the world's first civilization-wide game of telephone, where little was actually whispered correctly. The Maya were not struck down by thunderbolts of mystery alone. They were visited by that common visitor of history: change. Alas, as we drift further into the slumber of the past, remember this delicate cosmic dance of cause and effect, a show that has played to the orchestra of the stars for aeons. As the moon rises, casting its luminance over the shadows of the stair-stepped pyramids, it gently leads us to the next chapter, a new glimpse into the life and lore of the ancient world, where yet more stories unfold under the velvety blanket of history's night sky. So settle in, dear listener, as we meander deeper into the tapestry of time, dreamily unraveling the whispers that continue to linger between the fluttering leaves of jungle palaces. In the cool, velvety night of the ancient Maya world, if you were very quiet, you could almost hear the whispers of history swaying on the lullaby breeze. The Maya, masters of everything from astronomy to architecture, had a knack for the dramatic. But it wasn't all human sacrifice and jungle pyramids. Oh no. Somewhere in the tangled tapestry of time lies a curious trend, a fascination for political intrigue more gripping than the best episode of an over-budgeted historical drama series. Just imagine, if you will, the grand city of Copan, nestled in what would now be called Western Honduras. Ah, yes, Copan, where rulers sported names like Waxaclajun Ub'a Kawil. Try saying that without spitting on the person next to you. For now, let's call him the artist, formerly known as Waxaclajun. His visionary reign brought Copan to its golden age, and his city strutted its stuff like a peacock at a poultry trade show. Yet, beneath the splendor, whispered conspiracies were brewing. It turns out, political backstabbing wasn't just an invention of cable TV. Meanwhile, further northeast, the mighty city of Tikal sat amidst a network of ink-black roads, as if daring other cities to play a game of ancient Civ. Tikal's rulers were skilled at the real-life chess of power and influence, except with more feathers and possibly less swearing. They even had an impressive set of allies, partial to the mutual exchange of war secrets and recipes for tamales. However, many of these alliances were as stable as a hammock in an earthquake. When Tikal found its arch-enemy, the court, records simply read, Kalak Mul. One can assume this was muttered with a theatrical shaking of fists. Kalak Mul, located in what's now modern-day Mexico, was so powerful they probably had their own anthem, possibly played on xylophones made from giant turtles. Between diplomatic overtures, minor wars, and more family feuds than you could throw a corncob at, the Maya societies danced between alliances and enmities. Cities such as Dos Pilas, Yaxchilan, and others shifted and grew under the influence of these monumental rivalries, each carrying stories of glory and grumble that make the foibles of any Shakespearean tragedy seem rather tame in comparison. Above all else, the Maya world was held together by jade, chocolate, and sheer coincidence. Their cities didn't crumble because they weren't grand, but more because being best friends forever sometimes didn't mean forever, especially when droughts decided to RSVP at the last minute. Returning to the iconic city of Copan, its decline was a cautionary tale. The preferred storyline tells of a series of 7-foot-tall rulers who didn't know a recession from a resplendent headdress. They thought higher taxes on chocolate and coral dyes would solve all ailments, but it only led to a great many headache-racked evenings for the commoners, who, let's face it, just wanted to enjoy their maze in peace. In this dreamlike theatre of the past, every evening brought restiveness to the palaces, where dreams, aspirations, and sometimes errors unfolded against a backdrop of lilting jungle sounds and hummingbird lullabies. So, as the nightly curtain draws gently across our view of these ancient sun-dappled plazas and vine-clad temples, you might wonder, did the Maya climb to their dizzying heights, only to find that they toppled their own towers with the weight of their ambitions? But hold that thought and let it join the rustling leaves in the balmy Maya breeze, because every history graduate or self-proclaimed archaeological amateur knows that the beauty of these mysteries rests in their eternal question marks. The Maya, like many grand civilizations, had a knack for leaving stories half-told, like delicious, unsolved riddles. Now, as you snuggle deeper into your covers, your mind drifting among celestial glyphs and ancient ball courts, let the gentle threads of sleep draw you seamlessly to our next chapter, much like the ancestral paths that once linked these mystic cities under the silvery, watchful gaze of the stars. As our ethereal journey continues through the impressive yet oddly enigmatic world of the Maya civilization, it's time to focus on a rather quirky aspect of their architectural innovation. Imagine, if you will, a majestic city sprawling before you, where temples rise like the dreams of a masterful architect who perhaps had a few too many sips of fermented cacao beverage. The Maya built pyramids with the precision of a masterful guacamole cook delicately, slicing the avocados of time. Now, these weren't just any pyramids. Picture them as the skyscrapers of the ancient world, except instead of glass and steel, profoundly made from stones stacked with such care that even the most seasoned Jenga player would weep with admiration. You could almost hear them whisper through the ages, "We were built to last." But also, mind your step. Erosion, she is a wild one. Among these impressive constructions stood the mighty temple of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza. It was here that the Maya blended architectural brilliance with a touch of theatricality. You see, each year, as the equinoxes grace the land with their ethereal balance, a shadow serpent, crafted entirely from sunlight and soul whispers, slithers down the pyramid steps. It was nature's very own light show, an ancient precursor to the laser displays of our modern age. No ticket required. Just a sense of awe and a willingness to get there before the tourists. But wait, there's more. These architects of old were not satisfied with just flummoxing future archaeologists or entertaining the occasional sun deity. They also designed their cities with the acoustics that could arguably rival any modern-day opera house. It's said that a clap in front of the Great Pyramid will echo back a series of descending tones, imitating the call of the Quetzal, the sacred bird of the Maya. This auditory marvel surely had the birds of the time wondering why all their impersonators sounded suspiciously like distant claps and not quite like quack. Yet, amid these magnificently active endeavors, the Maya also found time to cultivate a life rhythm that harmonized with the towering trees and riotous wildlife surrounding them. Their cities pulsed with markets, ball courts, and communities that thrived on more than just pyramids and astronomical alignments. The citizens were, after all, like us, partial to a good trade network and an occasionally overzealous street vendor offering what might just be the era's finest maize. Of course, every civilization has its party poopers, and for the Maya, it was a trio of setbacks: droughts, political upheaval, and the mysterious allure of "we totally know it but won't tell you" events. These factors slowly wove themselves into the very fabric of Maya society, questioning the endurance of even their most formidable structures. However, the Maya possessed a knack for adaptation, perfecting a survival game worthy of many sequels. As we leave the Maya's architectural marvels and drift further into the realm of historical mystery, let's remember that the beauty of the Maya civilization was as much in their capacity to enjoy the simple pleasures as to build enduring wonders. The gentle sounds of nature, the rhythm of daily life, and the silent spectacle of celestial shadows all combine to craft a world full of subtle joy and magic. So let us gently close the pages for now and allow the dance of light and shadow, past and present, to sway you further into the realm of dreams. Rest easy, knowing our story will continue, murmuring softly through time, perhaps guiding you toward another tale that awaits just beyond the horizon. As the shadowy tendrils of evening crept over the lush jungles of Mesoamerica, we find ourselves treading softly into the realm of the ancient Maya, guided by the ambient hum of the forests and the slow rustle of the unseen creatures that call it home. Imagine, if you will, the flickering light of 1,000 torches lighting the paths around towering pyramids, each step leading back to a heart of stone that held secrets like a world-weary librarian who's seen too much. The Maya world, a civilization that once built these mathematical marvels of masonry, seems to whisper truths long shrouded in the gentle mystery of leaves. Now we drift with ease into the realms of the 9th century, a time of upheaval and silence, where the cities that once buzzed with the echoing chatter of what must have been the ancient equivalent of board meetings suddenly paused as if hit by the mother of all snooze buttons. Collapse, as it turns out, doesn't always make a grand entrance. Instead, it pitter-pattered in like light rain through the canopy, transforming mighty centers of trade and knowledge into echoes of greatness. It wasn't one single event, as dramatic as that would have been. Imagine instead a confluence of mischievous little factors, like mischievous pixies of chaos, each contributing a note to create a symphony of societal slowdown. Let's start with one of their favorite tricks: environmental challenges. A prolonged drought back then wasn't just Mother Nature's way of asking for a good rain dance. It was the kind of dry season where crops shriveled and people turned to the sky with squinting brows and serious doubts about their local weather oracle. Then add in a dash of internal tensions. Simmer on low until regional elites stopped inviting each other to the grand pyramid parties, and you get wibbly-wobbly power struggles that rival any soap opera plot. Mix in the need for resources, those essential must-have items, from afar, and you realize soon enough that a society built on trade can no longer exchange stone-stacking techniques for a much-needed basket of corn. Perhaps, just maybe, it was the Maya's exquisite calendar that caught up with them. For a people who could map the stars with pinpoint precision, they might have simply run out of days and decided it was time for a well-deserved rest, like the universe giving them a gentle nudge, saying, perhaps it's time to take up a quieter hobby, like pottery painting or hammock lounging. As the moon began her tranquil arc across the obsidian canvas of the night, the once bustling cities found themselves listening to an unplanned symphony of silence, a resonant pause. Slowly reclaimed by emerald tendrils of nature, the temples offered their outer walls as canvases for the jungle, artists we know as vines and moss. This was not a fall in a great blaze, but rather a serene unwinding of civilization, like slowly sinking into a warm bath after a long day of pyramid building. In the whispering aftermath, the Maya did not disappear in a puff of historical smoke. They endured and adapted, dispersing into smaller villages where perhaps conversations turned from grandiose city plans to the simple joy of how best to hang a hammock between those ever-encroaching jungle trees. As you drift towards the comforting embrace of sleep, think of the Maya as not a lost civilization, but one that chose an unhurried pace, moving in time with the patient wisdom of the trees. Their legacy, with its share of mysteries and triumphs, nudges us to remember that time itself often prefers a gentle sway over a racing rush. And so, with the serene rhythm of history's clockwork still ticking softly in the background, we shall leave the ancient Maya under the crescent watch of night. Soon, we will journey back to reveal more tales knit together with threads of time. But for now, nestle into a dream woven with star patterns and stories whispered softly by the breezes that dance through ancient leafy realms. In the lush heart of the Maya rainforest, where ancient trees swayed softly to the whispering winds, the Mayans were busy attending to their chores. Well, busy is a bit of a stretch. They were rather rapidly resembling the art of languor. Our story, like a gentle river meandering through timeless lands, finds its way back to the humble rooftops of Chichen Itza. Today's chapter, dear dreamer, unfolds with the silent hum of anticipation. Or perhaps that hum is just a distant cicada having its own existential crisis. You see, the Mayans, with their astounding astrological prowess, foresaw many things. They had calendars more precise than a Swiss watchmaker. Yet amidst their grand cosmic calculations, they often overlooked forecasting their next meal, favoring instead the prospect of celestial tacos. In an otherwise ordinary afternoon of the late classic period, where even the wildlife seemed to engage in the noble art of yawning, our eyes cast themselves upon Balaam, a farmer with an operational philosophy of mañana most days, but ahora mismo when it came to napping. His exceptional talent lay in growing maize with sporadic disinterest, partly due to his frequent detours through the forest, chasing whispers of mystical creatures that, much to the chagrin of his productivity, he never quite caught up with. Balaam's days were a sublime blend of part daydreaming, part corn planting. Legend, or perhaps just the gossip around the village hearth, had it that he'd once tried to start a maize-themed poetry club. Alas, it didn't quite take kingdom, as the other Mayans preferred using poetry for grand architecture instead. Still, every effort counted in Balaam's dreams. Yet, as Balaam slumbered beneath the canopy of whispering leaves, the larger cycle of life continued unhindered. Forest fauna lived their night lives, planning armadillo parties under the moonlight or conspiring, with as much discretion as scurrying squirrels can muster, to pilfer the unguarded corn supply. Amidst this lovely tangle of life, whispers began circulating that something called, rather dramatically, the Great Drought had taken residence in their land. But in the typical Mayan spirit of optimism, they thought of it more like an extended dry vacation from the clouds. No one had thought to bring a welcoming party, and unlike most guests, this drought had no hurry to leave. Soon, rumors about the vanishing act of all resources began tickling through the great stone avenues. Reservoirs began to echo loneliness, and naturally, storytelling flourished as crops withered, perhaps hoping to compensate for their lost bounty with tales as rich as any harvest. While the Great Drought played the villain, Mayan ingenuity played the hero, cape flapping stylishly in the breeze of cultural flourish. Water reservoirs, lovingly hewn from limestone, stood like guests, patiently waiting for the rain god Chak's overdue monsoon orchestra. And the Mayans, never ones to waste even the direst circumstances, turned to the skies, placing wagers on whether Chak had taken an extended vacation on the celestial beaches. Amidst this climatic drama, our poetic farmer, Balaam, not one to be daunted, ventured to innovate, a prototype of sky spyglass to communicate directly with the very clouds. His trials didn't bring the rain, but they did imbue everyone with confidence that hope remained full of mischief. As the sun began setting, casting its warm orange glow over the stone facades and templing grounds, evening chants escaped into the air like benevolent spirits. Balaam, undeterred by the day's yield, or lack thereof, reclined against an ancient pillar, exhaling a long breath of faith into the napping wind. And there they stayed, the Mayans and their resilient spirits, as twilight wrapped them in its gentle embrace, each heartbeat synchronizing with the universe's sleeping tune. while the water stayed timid in revealing itself, dreams flowed freely, stitching together tomorrows from the fertile quilt of storied nights. As the narrative orb drifts toward its silken horizon, let the tales seep into your thoughts like the honeyed warmth of a summer sun. Rest, dear sleeper. The journey through time continues in the gentle arms of slumber, crafting the next chapter while you float on the tranquil seas of night. As the nocturnal jungle canopy twinkles with sparkling starlight, we turn our gaze to the Maya, who in their heyday could read the night sky like it was their morning newspaper. But instead of the usual tales of political scandal, horoscopes, and sports results, the Maya celestial script whispered cryptic truths about time itself. It warned of the end of cycles and hinted at periods of secret transformation, manifesting with unnerving punctuality. Allow me, your sleepy history guide, to take you to this time of transition now. Warm beverage optional, but highly recommended. Picture yourself in the midst of an evening in the Maya region, where the air is as thick as the drama that unfolded in their courts. Here sat the resilient kings of the Maya, rulers of kingdoms as vibrant as their feathered cloaks, now shifting uneasily on their thrones. Well, more like ancient stone seats that probably didn't hold a candle to your recliner. During the terminal classic period, around at 800 to 1000, something peculiar happened. Though the Maya were experts at building, instead of adding bricks to their architectural masterpieces, they began to remove themselves from cities teeming with people. And so, the skyscraping pyramids became more like the world's most elaborately decorated ghost towns. You see, the Great Maya Collapse isn't exactly the tectonic catastrophe its name might cynics suggest. Imagine a slow-motion cha-cha instead, a retreat of aristocrats from center stage, leaving behind stone footprints and hieroglyphic tales that murmured echoes of once thriving life. The rulers passing through these tumultuous times probably hosted councils with vibrant discussions, debates, and maybe even the inaugural debate club about whose fault is it anyway. The horticultural experts likely contested with the dwindling resources, wondering if their crops needed motivational seminars to grow upward amid failing soils and increasing droughts. Indeed, agricultural distress combined with climate changes concocted an herbal brew of strife. The Mayas' dependency on finite land wore thin over time, like a page too often turned. Population pressures expanded, pressing more into the soil than it could yield. In hindsight, nature's signposts were as clear as comically oversized road warnings. But hey, what civilization hasn't thought, nah, we got this, just before the caution tape appeared? Amid this slow, unraveling drama, urban centers like Tikal and Copan turned into hotbeds of artistic endeavor. Picture this. Amidst the decline, artists were feverishly etching the last of the great stele, stone broadcasts capturing leaders poised heroically, despite knowing their carriage was more of an ox cart, dragging the kingdom towards uncertainty. Meanwhile, that old trickster time idled by, leisurely flipping through calendar cycles, reminding all that something was ending but neglecting to specify exactly what. Our Maya friends, like modern festival enthusiasts, packed up from the cities and traced their wayward paths elsewhere. As the cycles closed, perhaps the grand finale was less a collapse and more an elaborate historical shuffle, moving onto the footnotes of time rather than the headline act. Even though this great transition tethered tightly to the threads of why and how, few whispered the possibility of politics. And oh yes, they had. Era politics. Now imagine mighty kings and queen regnants scribbling in their scroll margins, "Beware of ambitious relatives." For this was an era when the political landscape was ripe for epic-level board games, complete with intrigue and the inevitable end of dynasty card. Despite these hurdles, and a somewhat cacophonous close of the classic period symphony, the Maya weren't going entirely gently into that good night. In some areas, like the Yucatan, they laid low in decentralized vibes, adapting to new rhythms, like expert dancers in their cosmic waltz. It's as though the Maya penned one heck of a cliffhanger with no immediate sequel, leaving archaeologists with tantalizing mysteries like, What became of all the elaborate feathered headdresses? And how did they maintain such superb dental hygiene without Instagram tutorials? So, here we drift on the gentle wings of ancient time, holding on to these whispers from the Maya past, echoing softly amidst the leaves, a reminder that even mighty civilizations step gently into history, paving their paths for curious minds like ours to trace. Rest assured, as we slip between the stars, the story continues, unraveling as a cosmic tale where dreams and history blend, until caught by quieter pages yet to turn. Amidst the dense jungles, the ancient cities of the Maya had always resembled celestial realms, hidden snugly in the pillowy folds of green canopies. Yet, like an alarm clock that refuses to snooze, the world moved on, and these once bustling metropolises gradually found themselves wrapped in the delicate webs of time. Imagine, if you will, as we tiptoe through this historical whispering gallery, the year is a sleepy afternoon, sometime around the 9th century, a golden age of mystery and astrological rigor. The Maya nobility, clad in garments as colorful as their cosmological charts, suddenly decided to play the most peculiar game of hide-and-seek history has ever seen. And just like a dinner party where it's like, everyone leaves but no one tells the host, the nobles simply stopped showing up. You see, archaeologists found them wandering away from the monumental temples adorned with lime plaster that once gleamed brighter than a Caribbean moonlit night. It wasn't so much of a mass exodus as it was a quiet dispersal, like when your favorite coffee shop suddenly closes and no one has the heart to take the last muffin. But rather than an overcooked pastry, the nobles were chasing after influences more powerful than the priest-kings could offer. For during this twilight of their age, something rather unfeathered was afoot. Wars, those boisterous games of thrones played with civilization's chess pieces, scattered the city-states. Local nobles had taken a liking to being the emperors of their very own sandcastles, and a game of power was waged with vigor, not unlike a neighborhood board game night gone wrong. Ledgers of old speak in hushed tones of rivalries that erupted like forgotten, volcanic enthusiasm. In the meantime, the forests themselves decided to join in this sophisticated confusion. The earth, overworked and weary, like we've all been on a late Tuesday afternoon, struggled to nourish the expansive urban sprawl. The Maya, in their astuteness, had turned to slash and burn agriculture to feed their chattering multitudes. It's just that eventually, the soil grew tired of playing house with constant fire. Imagine, if you will, each felled tree sighing dramatically as it fed another crop, dreaming of a day when it would sway again in tropical breezes. And then there were catastrophes that wouldn't grab headlines today, but were nonetheless respectable weather events of their time. A reduction in rain, the Cancun of droughts, shifted the balance from abundant livelihoods to scrambling for sustenance like misplacing one shoe before work. Those strikingly precise astronomical observations our Maya friends were known for. Well, they offered little solace against the erratic whims of cloud cover. But let us pause on the edge of those leafy memories, as there's more to glean from this historical foliage. Amid the transitions, trading routes too were tangled in their own silent contemplation. The collapse of the grand Maya cities left a mosaic of lesser-known towns, trading fewer shells, their once bouncing marketplaces now echoing with a softer, more introspective hum. You know it's been tough when trade networks start daydreaming about their glory days like nostalgic vicars. As dream catchers swung softly in humid breezes, life for many Mayans continued away from the architectural giants, in smaller villages and new places of settlement, whispering tales of resilience under the starry sky. And perhaps, as we wander towards our own next chapter, there's a comforting whisper of reassurance in this rhythmed cycle. There's always room for a new beginning amidst the echoes of a grander song. So cuddle deeper into your blankets, dear. Dream explorers, as we drift silently like clouds over the cornfields of history. We shall soon uncover what odes were left by the Maya people as they embrace the embrace of time itself. painting a new story on the tapestry of the ancient jungle. As the soft moonlight gently caresses the ancient Yucatan jungle, we reach the final chapter of our cozy journey through the verdant secret rooms of time. Our thoughts meander with the great and haunting saga of the Maya, a tale woven with mystery, mathematical prowess, heaps of corn, and perhaps a sleep-deprived priest or two. Picture, if you will, a bustling Maya society, rich with astrological wonder and the faint notions of a competitive ballgame that makes modern sports look like a friendly game of charades. Truly, the Maya were leagues ahead in measuring time with their precise calendars, remarkably precise for a people without digital alarm clocks or coffee, mind you. But tonight, we drift on soft clouds of speculation toward the twilight of their grand civilization. As the stars twinkle above, casting their celestial gaze upon your sleepy eyes, let's ponder what could have sent this brilliant society into a prolonged, quiet night. Imagine the Maya kings assembling in their limestone palaces, crowned with elaborate feathers that made them look as if they were hosting a particularly eccentric yet dignified avian soiree. These rulers were tasked with guiding their people, which surprisingly did not include convincing them to consume the latest herbal tea detox. Now, one potential whisperer of the collapse was the hefty weight of vanity and ambition. These rulers had a knack for commissioning grandiose temples, the ancient world's equivalent of keeping up with the Jainses, only with larger pyramids and fewer lawn gnomes. Alas, this construction frenzy required a vast investment of sweat, stone, and sacrificial rituals, not unlike planning a holiday dinner with the in-laws. There is also the tale of Aussie climate change, a story as ancient as time and as modern as a cardboard straw that doesn't quite work smoothie. Prolonged droughts visited these lands, turning once thriving farms into barren crusts not even a cactus would consider inhabiting. Crops withered, and so did the patience of a populace with a taste for corn tortillas and chocolate. Imagine your exasperation when a favorite restaurant is out of avocado toast. Now amplify it by a few million. Weaved into this slow descent were societal shifts too. Increasing revolts against the kingly class became as common as artisanal cheese in a trendy farmer's market, destabilizing the very structure vital for maintaining the Maya clockwork society. The common folk, perhaps unimpressed by the priest's inability to conjure rain or cease their apocalypse predictions of 879 AD standout tour, sought change. There's the ever-popular theory of trade woes, where routes change like fickle fashion trends, altering economic or stability. Who knew the humble jade and obsidian supply chain would someday be hotly debated at history seminars or in bedtime stories inducing delightful dreams? Yet, amidst all these possibilities, one must give a gentle nod to the resilience of human spirit and ingenuity. While the grand civilization waned, the progeny of the Maya thrived, adapting and continuing traditions that echo through the wind-swept jungles even today. As the fireflies semaphore their glowing signals through the midnight air, this chapter draws to its quiet conclusion, much like the Maya themselves, with a profound, reflective brilliance, leaving us with curious thoughts and an armful of untangled conclusions. It's now time to smooth out the mental tapestry, breathe deeply, and let these whispers of ancient riddles usher us into a sweet slumber. So, dear listener, as your mind drifts toward the inviting embrace of dreams, imagine the mighty Maya nestled in the folds of history, forever wrapped in mystery, and just maybe, dreaming a little themselves under the same eternal stars. Rest easy, for Storytime has weaved its soft spell and invites you to the land of Nod.